But let's get talking. Now, following a pronouncement by the Central Bank of Nigeria instructing financial institutions to refrain from dealing with cryptocurrencies and facilitating payments for cryptocurrency exchanges, the bank launched a project to produce and issue a government-controlled digital currency in Nigeria known as eNaira. Now, the digital currency is to be used or issued by the Nigerian government with the same value as Naira notes. It is said to provide a number of key benefits to Nigeria, both in helping to achieve the core objectives of the CBN, such as maintaining monetary and financial stability and increasing financial inclusion, as well as broadly to achieve positive social and economic outcomes for Nigeria. While the CBN is set to launch the digital currency on October 1st, 2021, now what are the objectives and what does this mean for the financial sector in the country? Well, joining me to understand this is Professor Uche Uwaleke. He is the chairman of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Abuja branch. Thank you very much for your time, Professor Uwaleke. It's really good to see you. Financial sector in the country. Joining me to understand this, Professor Uche Uwaleke. He is the chairman of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Abuja branch. Thank you very much for your time, Professor Uwaleke.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tolu. It's been my pleasure.
Now, let's start with an overview of what you think this initiative is up to achieve.
Yeah, Tolu is one development that will be positive for the payment system in Nigeria. No doubt. We are counting down 9 days from now. The eNaira will go live. So, and I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited as well, Tolu. If you look at the basic design of the eNaira, the basic features, maybe we'll start from there. You realize that the eNaira is simply the digital version of the Naira, the cash. Of course, to that extent, it also means that it is is a legal tender. A legal tender by implication also means that it's money that is generally accepted. So it is meant to be universally transferable, generally accepted, because it is legal tender that is backed by the central bank, that is issued, by the central bank, and because it is the digital version of your Naira. It also means that there is what is called parity of value. In other words, 1 Naira is equivalent to 1 eNaira. So there is, complete, parity of value. Another major thing that one needs to know about the eNaira is that it is non-interest bearing. It's not something that you get because you want to earn interest, and of course that distinguishes it from a typical cryptocurrency. So it's important to note that the eNaira is not cryptocurrency. You're familiar with the popular saying that while all cryptocurrencies are digital currencies, not all digital currencies are cryptocurrencies. So in that vein, the eNaira is not a digital currency. Number one, we know who is issuing it. Number two, as I said, is a legal tender, unlike a cryptocurrency that is more of something we find that is private, private sector driven. Private cryptocurrencies like your Bitcoin and Ethereum that are subject to little or no regulation. You don't know who is issuing. So the eNaira is quite different from cryptocurrency, and of course it's not unlike cryptocurrency. It's not really an asset class. I've said it earlier on that it's not interest bearing. So overall, I think the eNaira for Nigeria is one, if you like, one product whose time has come. I think Nigeria is is taking the wise decision to join the League of Nations that have so far introduced eNaira, and that's talking about countries like Bahamas, China, and some Eastern Caribbean countries. So overall, Tolu is a good development.
All right, Prof, that's a very good way to start this discussion. But I'm not looking at some of the positives, particularly with regards to financial inclusion and also reducing cost of processing cash. Can you take us through what all of this means?
Yes. If you look at the operating model of the eNaira, maybe we'll also touch on that briefly. On October 1, when eNaira is expected to go live, all that you need to do is to download the Speed app. The Speed app, for now, made available by the central bank. Of course, with time, banks can also enable access to eNaira using their mobile apps. The Speed app is just, if you like, a stopgap measure to meet the timeline. So on October 1, yes, you can, using your phone, smartphone, download the app. You through either Google app or Apple Store, you can get the e-wallet. And once it is created, and then funded, that means transactions can now take place, via the e-wallet. Funding means, you can now get your bank to transfer some of your money in your account to the e-wallet. So some portion of that is converted to, e-wallet, and that enables you to do consumer-to-consumer transactions, or if you like, P2P, peer-to-peer transactions, and even person-to-merchant, transactions. So for now, the central bank is adopting what is called a tier wallet structure. A tier wallet structure that has a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and recently they've also introduced tier 0. Now for tier 1 will allow you to undertake transactions, send money and receive money, with a limit of 50,000 naira. So that limit is important. Maybe I'll also mention that later why that transaction limit is important. So for tier 1 transactions, you can do your transactions with a cap of 50,000. Of course, the daily balance for tier 1 has been put at 300,000 naira. There's also tier 2. Tier 2 has a higher limit of 200,000 naira. You can send up to 200,000. You can also receive up to 200,000 with a maximum daily balance of 500,000. And then you have tier 3. Okay, tier 3 with a limit of 1 million naira and balance of daily balance of 5 million. Of course, for merchants, there's no limit with respect to how much can be swept into their e-wallet. But of course, that's in terms of daily balance. But the limit, of course, is also 1 million for for merchants. So this, if you like, risk-based approach is also very, very, very important. And of course, in all of them, the identification will remain via the BVN and national identification number. Now, with respect to tier 1 and tier 0, one doesn't really need to have a bank account, according to what the guidelines that have been released. For tier 0 is 20,000, the limit. For tier 0 and tier 1, as I said, all that one requires to have is just a phone number. You have a phone, you have a phone that of course is linked to the NIN. So the phone has to be linked to the the NIN, and once that is provided, one will be allowed to open an e-wallet. But I understand for the pilot phase for the October 1, the eNaira will only capture those with bank accounts. Of course, those with bank accounts are expected to have BVN, and with that, you could say the KYC requirement to a large extent, would have been met. So in terms of modus operandi, that's what we should expect, in the first, at least few months of implementation of the eNaira.
Now, let me now ask you, could you please clarify?
Maybe I should also address the question you asked, regarding, the benefits.
Okay.
The eNaira has a number of benefits to Tolu. As I said, is one development that promises to revolutionize, if you like, the payment system. Of course, we already have e-payment systems in place, but this one is now coming from the central bank. This one is now a liability of the central bank, backed by the central bank, as opposed to the ones that are liabilities of deposit money banks. So it will enhance the payment system, no doubt. And this issue of, for example, you buy something and you don't get change, could become a thing of the past with eNaira. Because what it means is that no matter how small the change is, your e-wallet can be, credited. And associated with the payment system too is the low transaction cost involved. And Tolu is also going to promote the cashless policy of the central bank. There's no doubt about that. And in terms of cross-border transactions, we also expect that to be faster, and easier. And closely associated with that too is the ease of remittances, because this time around with e-wallets, one can receive remittances via the wallet. So remittances are faster, and they are they are easier. And a very important one which you mentioned is financial inclusion, and that's because just as I mentioned earlier, there are e-wallet tiers that don't even require you to have a bank account. Okay, so once you have a phone linked to NIM, you can be part of this the ecosystem that the central bank is trying to create, and that will enhance financial inclusion. And of course, I've mentioned the issue of low transaction costs. And the beauty of it too, Tolu, is that the central bank, unlike what obtains in maybe in some other models now, because if you look at the central bank digital currency models, there are several models. The central bank has justifiably chosen the two-tiered approach model, which also gives certain rules to deposit money banks. So while the central bank will mint, or if you like, mine, issue the eNaira, the distribution of the eNaira will be facilitated by the deposit money banks. So they have been given rules in the process, and that to me is very, very important.
Prof, let me ask you this. Prof, allow me to interject. Prof,
yeah.
Let me ask you
okay,
could you please clarify the reason for CBN's eNaira's mobile app, since banks can enable access to eNaira on their own mobile apps and also enable access to merchant apps? Would CBN be a competitor with banks in enabling eNaira's access?
No, I think the central bank has made it very clear that it is not in competition with banks. All the other existing products that the banks have will still be there. It's just that this time around the eNaira is that of the central bank. As I explained, is a liability of the central bank. As I mentioned earlier, it also provides an opportunity for banks, to innovate around it. Banks, with time, will be expected to also have their own mobile app. Banks and even fintech companies, have their own mobile apps enabling access to the eNaira. But what is happening now is that the central bank is saying for the October 1 deadline to be met, it's important that the speed up is issued by the central bank, which is why it is saying that on October 1, people can go to Google Store or Apple Store to download the the e-wallet. And by the way, the validation of the user, is actually done by the deposit money banks, by the banks, okay? Because banks are expected to issue a code that will enable you to be onboarded, in the eNaira, framework, which is why I said banks, have a role to play. And don't forget too that the eNaira is meant to, as I said, encourage the cashless, policy. You can convert some of your deposits to eNaira, and vice versa. Even though the central bank will not encourage converting from eNaira to cash. So of course, when that happens, that's also where the banks will come in. The banks can earn some fees, arising from that. So from the point of view of the bank, you also notice that the cost of even processing cash, will reduce. And if you look at it from the point of the central bank itself, we spend huge sums of money printing, currency notes in this country, currency notes and coins. I saw a report that said that between 2014 and 2019 or so, we spent about 300 billion, printing money. So what this development now entails is that the cost of printing money, will reduce. And the central bank also spends money even destroying unfit notes. So the cost of even destroying unfit notes will also, go down, because, some of this money will now be in a digital form. Even though we don't have empirical evidence yet, but there is this possibility that the eNaira may even facilitate a transmission mechanism of monetary policy. So if it's going to ease monetary policy, especially on account of the fact that the CBN will have some sort of control now, on money supply, at least in the digital form. So to that extent, monetary policy is expected to be enhanced. And as I said earlier on, the central bank will also save a lot of money from printing, currency. On the part of the government, there are also benefits. Don't forget to, in terms of, revenue, government revenue, tax collection is also expected that that should be enhanced. And government is concerned about formalizing the informal sector. The eNaira will also, facilitate the formalization of the informal sector. So, however you look at it, Tolu, the benefits are enormous. They're quite promising. And if you put that side by side with the concerns or the risks associated with this effort, you will agree with me that the benefits far outweigh the costs. And the good news is even that the central bank, we understand, has put in place measures, to even address, some of these concerns and these risks, especially those arising from, financial, disintermediation and issues around security.
Yes. Let me come in there. That was the next question. Security features also need to be put in place. What do you think? How well is that also being done, particularly from maybe cloning and of course counterfeiting?
Yes, Tolu. In the first instance, we understand the eNaira is going to come with KYC and the anti-money laundering, module. Okay. By the way, I should have mentioned it, that one of the advantages is that it's going to help the government, the central bank, track illicit financial flows. As you know, unlike cryptocurrency that has become, private crypto now, that has become vehicles for, illicit financial flows, money laundering, and the likes. That of the eNaira, has a lot of, safeguards. So there is, what I understand, there is a traceability and programmability element of the eNaira, and what that does is to help track illicit financial flows. So it is going to be integrated with anti-money laundering, CFT, that's combating financial terrorism, software, such that will enable the central bank, reduce that and curb that. And the central bank has also said that the eNaira will be treated as part of a critical national infrastructure. Okay, and what that means is that even before the launch on October 1, the eNaira must have been subjected to a comprehensive security check. Okay, and what gives me comfort is, and of course Nigerians, comfort, is the fact that the central bank is, of course, partnering with a reputable technical firm. The central bank has a technical partner, in the BIT Incorporated. BIT Incorporated, I have done some, background research on BIT Incorporated. This is one firm that has also facilitated the implementation of CBDC in Barbados, in especially the Eastern Caribbean countries. So BIT Incorporated has that track record, and if you also try to study BIT Incorporated a lot more, you'll find that it's also one company that has been endorsed by the IMF, the World Bank, and the World Economic Forum. So it's a reputable firm, and the good thing again about it is that this is a firm that will eventually be registered here in Nigeria, and in which the central bank will also have equity interest. So with BIT Incorporated as a technical partner, I'm pretty sure some of the security concerns will be addressed.
So just 9 days, like you said, 9 days to go, and we expect this to happen. What's your final message to Nigerians, particularly as they wait for this? I'm also waiting. I need to download my wallet, right? How do I go about it?
Yes, it's something we should, we should all welcome. I think with time, I expect that the uptake will be, will be much. Something that Nigerians, will and should receive, favorably. As I mentioned earlier, on October 1 is a simple process. One can, download either through the Google app or the Google Store or Apple Store, the Speed app. That will be made available by the central bank, and that way, once you have your e-wallets, created, you can convert some of your deposits into eNaira, and you're good to go. Yes, and of course, with time, from what I understand, what is going to happen now is just a pilot phase. With time, it will be extended to even people in the rural areas. Yeah. So what we expect to happen on October 1 will be, confined to those with bank accounts, and of course, because it's a pilot phase, maybe in major cities where the internet internet availability, can be assured. But I'm pretty sure that with time, it's something that we can extend to, even people in the rural area. So it's a good thing. It's a win for Nigeria. As I said, one of the countries to blaze the trail in terms of digital currencies. As we speak, Tolu, about 85 countries are already in this process, either at the research stage or proof of concept stage, or even a few have gone live. And it's a good thing to know that Nigeria will soon join countries that will go live with eNaira. Let me mention quickly, I talked about this fear that, banks will be displaced, financial disintermediation may result, when people now convert their deposits to cash. That's why the central bank is using that transaction limit. Okay,
right,
and that's also why the central bank is adopting a two-tier structure, involving the banks, in distributing the eNaira. So Tolu overall is quite positive for the payment system in Nigeria, and it's quite positive for the Nigerian economy.
It's a good way to leave it. Professor Uche Uwaleke there, Chairman, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Abuja branch. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and at least letting Nigerians understand more about eNaira. We wait for October 1st, see how it all happens. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. We appreciate this.
Thank you, Tony.
All right. Now.